Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag podcast. Not with your host, Freddie Hall. He's not with us tonight. So I'm filling in as the host. So bear with me if the questions are a bit ropey, but I'm usually the answerer. But free agency has started. There's been a bit of a frenzy, but the biggest free agent signing so far is what we've made. George from George on Sports has come on board. I know Freddie wanted to announce it last week, but unfortunately you couldn't be with us because you're a very busy man when it comes to NFL. Welcome to the team. Yeah. Welcome, mate. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Freddie's not wrong. I've been, trying to do as many things as I can. I'm a mad NFL fan. And for people who don't know, I played the game in the UK for 11 years. I only just retired last year as a running back. So I'm all things NFL, as my wife would say. And given, I know we're going to talk about it, but all the craziness that's been happening, my mind is just all over the place right now. All the moves and the trades, and some shocking ones, some ones I expected, but we'll get into that a bit later, I guess.
Well, let's get some headline news out of the way nice and quick. I didn't want to spend much time talking about this topic because I'm fed up of him. But Tom Brady announced that he's coming out of retirement. He was only retired for 40 days. What's your reaction, guys? Adam, how do you feel about it?
How horrible must his children be that it has only taken 40 days for him to come out of retirement? No, I think it wasn't it something to do with keeping, if they wanted to keep Ryan Jensen, wasn't it? That was basically had to do it. Otherwise, he was going to disappear as well. Yeah, I mean, great player, been around forever, spoken about this over and over and over again. And, it's Brett Favre all over again. All we're going to do is we're going to get, is he going to retire? Is he not going to retire? But,
nearly as boring.
It's always fun. It's fun that he's in. It's fun that he's in the league, but, give it a rest.
Yeah.
George, what's your take on it, mate? You pleased to see him back? Rather he stayed retired?
Yeah, mine's quite easy because I'm a Colts fan. So, historically, I don't really like Brady. Credit to him, though, at 44 years old. I mean, most people towards the end of their career, if you look at Big Ben, etc., they kind of trend downwards. Brady's going that way. So I can't really say too much apart from as long as he doesn't do too much damage to us, if we end up playing each other, then it's all good. And I hope his wife can forgive him. So, yeah, that's it for Brady.
You got to feel sorry for the guy that bought his final touchdown ball for like £500,000.
Yeah.
That's now worth nothing, really, is it?
Yeah.
Let's dive into what essentially is March Madness for NFL. They've sort of trumped with everything that's gone. It's trumped the NCAA bracket selection of actual March Madness because there's been so much going on. Adam, what's been your biggest surprise so far?
Well, I think for me, it's more about certain teams that haven't joined in with the party. So now I get to have a go at our new host.
Here we go.
The Colts. What is going on with the Indianapolis Colts at the moment? They have got 60 million, 62 million, something like that, of available cap space, and they're not really doing anything. I don't know if that's just because they're biding their time and they're waiting for something amazing to happen. I'm not quite sure what the plan is there. I know there's a lot of talk of Jimmy G being the one that they're going to go for. Good luck with that. There are still some really good options out there, like Allen Robinson's still out there as a wide receiver. Wouldn't be the worst receiver in a position that the Colts do need as well. So I'm a little surprised with them. I'm also a little surprised with the Raiders. They've gone in for on Max Crosby, obviously, and spent a lot of money on him. But they're another team that at the moment, they've got 27 million available cap space. So they've got plenty of money there. And for some reason, that they're in a division now, which is stacked. and they're the bottom of the rung of them 4 now, especially given the moves that the Chargers have made. So I'm a little surprised that they haven't also gone out and got a receiver. You know, that's something that they're lacking at the moment. So yeah, I think they're the two sort of, aside from Russell Wilson, which I think last week kind of took everyone a bit by surprise, including our main host, who, bless him, because it was live, nearly wet himself whilst it was going on. But yeah, I think I don't know. I just kind of feel like I'm a little surprised that them 2 teams haven't got involved that much. I suppose another one as well is the Ravens. You know, they've brought in one, but I kind of, you know, it's these teams, especially in the AFC, because it's so stacked now that if you want to do anything, you've kind of got to spend big, and it kind of feels like these teams aren't really joining in the fun. So,
Oh, I mean, I'll save my Colts talk for, I guess, a different. Unless you want me to go into the Colts now. I mean, I'm happy to go into the Colts right now, but there's a few guys for me who kind of surprised me, and I'm going to start with Cardinals sending Chase Edmonds to the Miami Dolphins. And the only reason why I say that is because all season long there was talk about the Dolphins needing a bigger back, someone who can get it over the goal line, someone who can, you know, pound the rock and get that first yard conversion. And Myles Gaskin just isn't that guy. There was so much talk about Myles Gaskin pre-season, so much so that it led me to draft him, and I drafted him and kept him for the whole season. I think similar to you, Adam.
yeah.
Yeah. So when it's been announced, obviously James Conner has been extended at the Cardinals, and so Chase Edmonds has now gone to the Miami Dolphins. But my issue is he's a bit of a change of pace back for me. And Myles Gaskin isn't necessarily the slowest guy, but if you look at them physically, their skill set, there isn't too much difference. Although I would put Edmonds above Gaskin. So I'm just very confused as to why they've gone out and got someone like Edmonds, who is kind of the same kind of role. Another guy I'll mention, sticking with the Miami Dolphins, but they've also signed Cedric Wilson from the Cowboys, the wide receiver. Now that really does confuse me, because the Cowboys have obviously sent Amari Cooper to the Browns for, I believe it was a 5th or 6th round pick, which caused quite a bit of uproar in the wide receiver community, being that Cooper is one of the best route runners in the game. And that leaves them with Michael Gallup, who they've extended. I don't remember some of the other guys that they do have. But to me, Cedric Wilson was one of the guys that stood out when the main guys weren't around. When Michael Gallup was injured, Cedric Wilson was, you know, he was balling out. So I was kind of thinking to myself, okay, well, if they've got rid of Amari Cooper, surely they're going to have to hang on to both Gallup and Wilson. But they've sent him to the Miami Dolphins. And I think the Dolphins have done well, to be fair, because I think he's quite a talent, Cedric Wilson. And if you flip over to the Dolphins, Devontae Parker hasn't been up to scratch for how many years now. Someone that I really did like. He has the size, he has the ability, he can go up and get it. I think he's like a grade down to Allen Robertson, I would say. But yeah, I mean, the Dolphins have done well, so credit to them. On the subject of the Colts, do I really want to go into the Colts right now? They have done nothing but disappoint me. Yes, Ballard is a great GM, so I thought, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I think he's starting to rub guys on the team the wrong way. When your main guy, Darius Leonard, is having to complain and like tweets from the Jags about going all in and things like that, it's not looking great. He's already complaining, as is every other Colts fan, about us having our 5th quarterback or 6th quarterback in 6 seasons. Different quarterback, that is. It's not how you win championships. You can't do that and then have owner Jim Irsay tweeting cryptic stuff and putting out videos saying we're going to go all in, and then you do absolutely nothing aside from let guys go in at one of our guards, and then you re-sign Mo Alley-Cox, who, in my opinion, is a very underutilized weapon. He is ginormous. They don't call him Gigantor for no reason, right? You never target him in the red zone, so I don't know why we're re-signing him. He is slow as anything, but I do like him as a backup. So we need to sign another tight end. And the other guy we've only recently re-signed today is Zaire Franklin. I don't know what we're doing. I really don't know what we're doing. Every single person that we had supposedly serious targeting, Evan Ingram has now been signed. DJ Chark has now been signed. Jimmy Garoppolo, his is a different case because now the report is they're too scared of the shoulder surgery, which means he won't be able to throw a ball until July. The season starts in September. I don't know what we're doing. Deshaun Watson turned down the chance to speak to us. Well, the Texans did, because they don't want an interdivision trade, and I understand that. Aaron Rodgers has obviously stayed put. He was always going to stay put. Russell Wilson, I guess, didn't want to come over to. In fact, I'm sure Ballard probably said no, he's too expensive, and we don't have any first-round picks as it is. Now there's talk of Garoppolo, Marcus Mariota, who I do not want. There's also talk of Matt Ryan now, because he's a vet, and I don't want Matt Ryan either. He's trending downwards. Only person that I want is Derek Carr. And obviously, the noise around the room is Derek Carr's too expensive. The only thing that I'm keeping my fingers crossed for is Pete Carroll, who's 71, pushing 77, needs to retire. Firstly, the Seahawks came out and said that Russell Wilson was going nowhere. Lo and behold, Russell Wilson goes to the Broncos. So if it's a case of we're either waiting to see, because the 49ers are about, I think one of you guys mentioned it, about 20 million over the cap. So it could be the case that we get Jimmy Garoppolo on the cheap. If that's the case, fine, maybe. But I want Derek Carr. I don't know what we're doing. I'm getting incredibly frustrated. Every single team is making moves, aside from like the Steelers and maybe the Raiders that you mentioned, and Baltimore. And we just, I mean, for a team that flamed out against the worst team in our division, in the Jags, in the way that we did, we lost to the Raiders, lost to the Jags, flamed out our entire chances, wasting someone like Jonathan Taylor. It's not on. I don't know how, and I know I'm going on, but I just can't bring myself to I just can't understand what we're doing as an organization when you have someone like JT, who is the best running back in the league, yet you cannot afford, you can't, we have the most cap space in the league. What on earth are we doing? I'll leave it there because I won't stop. But
I mean, go on, Adam.
Just breathe. It'll all be okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
The two teams that Adam mentioned, the Colts and the Raiders, said they'd stayed quiet. Maybe they have stayed quiet because there is some deal being done for Derek Carr, and they don't, because it's not finalized. They don't want to do anything else until it's done. Maybe, who knows? Derek Carr.
Can I just say, I do think there is actually, this is a bit of a tenuous link, but I do actually feel there is a world in which you do get Derek Carr, because with Deshaun Watson, he's come out and said, hasn't he, that there's 4 teams that he's basically spoken to, and one of them is the Browns. Now, if he decides to go with the Browns, they're not going to keep Baker Mayfield. No. So when it comes to Baker Mayfield, the one guy who was really keen on Baker Mayfield was Josh McDaniels, who happens to be now at the Raiders. So there is a potential link there where it could happen, and that Derek Carr could become available. He is the type of quarterback that you need. I think you need someone who is that little bit better than Jimmy Garoppolo, because you're in that position where, you know, that defense is only going to get older now. You know, you've got the run game, and it just kind of feels like it's something that needs to happen. So, yeah.
Hopefully, man. Something's got to give.
Well, most of the free agency, I feel, so far, has been a lot of O-line moving on. I know it's a position that I feel like a lot of teams need to address. There's been a lot of guys moving around. I know the Bengals, I feel like they've done really well in picking up some guys. I also think the Jaguars have even also done very well at shoring up their O-line a bit. But for you guys, who do you think's made the best deal so far?
All right, so no, go on, you go, Adam.
Go for it. I'll let you.
So for me, it was a different player up until today when Randy Gregory made a U-turn from signing with the Cowboys and going back and going to Denver Broncos. And the reason I say that is because I know it's a $70 million 5-year deal, same he would have had at the Cowboys. But the Broncos traded for Russell Wilson. They've landed him. They also sent I forget the name of the tight end. They sent Noah Fant the other way. As well as a couple of other players and some picks, 2 picks this year, 2 picks next year, and I think another one at some other point. But the Broncos aren't that far away. When you've upgraded that quarterback to someone like Russell Wilson from Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, who are massive drop-offs compared to Russell Wilson, you then look at the offensive side of the ball. You've got one of the better 1-2 punchers in terms of running back with Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, someone I completely love, and I don't know if they will keep him or not actually, because I felt like he should have gone to the Bills or the Falcons. However, you then look at the wide receivers. You have guys like Tim Patrick, Joey Jeudy, who I think is, and I know all the analysts have been saying it, but I think this is his time to shine with an actual quarterback who can locate him the ball. They've got Albert O in terms of the tight end. Obviously, Noah Fant has gone the other way. A couple of the other receivers as well, Cortland Sutton. They have a great KJ Hamler, who's very underrated. They have a great offense, but even their defense, a young and up and coming. Patrick Surtain II is a gem. He is lights out. You've got Chubb, who hasn't been great on the D line on one side, but you pair him with someone like Randy, who will no doubt, it will change. It will make him play better. Quite essentially, I mean, you can't compare it, but if you look at the Chargers with Joey Bosa and now Khalil Mack, I mean, it's a force to be reckoned with. So I just feel like you add that piece into the puzzle for the Broncos defense. Nathaniel Hackett at the helm. They've got a lot going for them. They really, really do. And I don't know what the odds are right now, but I can see them being within a shot for the Super Bowl. So it's definitely Randy for me.
Yeah, it's very, very. I kind of agree, but I suppose it's more the Russell Wilson trade. It's not really free agency, but it is difficult to kind of get away from that. I think just that everything that that they are doing at the moment is pretty, pretty impressive. They're really giving it a good go. I mean, at the moment they're 11-1 to win the whole thing, which there's no way that they were that before Russell Wilson came in. I have to say, for me, there are a couple that are very good deals. I think the JC Jackson one to the Chargers is an incredible deal for a player who's, I think they said that he's had the most interceptions in the last 4 years. Is that the stat?
Yeah.
Under the radar, because I wasn't aware of him really. So
yeah. So I mean, he is definitely someone who is very impressive, and the deal is it's expensive, but anyone any good is going to be expensive, and there's even some that aren't very good that are expensive as well. So that one stood out to me. And the other one that really stood out to me, which you're going to love, Andrew, is Hassan Riddick to Philly. Yeah, I can't remember how many players there are. I think there's 3 or 4 players that have had more sacks than him over the last couple of seasons, and they're pretty big names. And yeah, he's been great. He was really good at Arizona in his last year. He was really good last year as well. And you just sort of think Philly are a team who seem to be cherry picking players now, and they're doing quite well. And they've still got, I think they've still got a bit of space to go out and potentially go out and get a few more. Yeah, they're pretty. I thought that was a pretty good one, but it's very difficult to get away from just the whole Denver Broncos, movement that there's been throughout this sort of free agency and trades and stuff like that. But I mean, what do you think, Andrew? Who's your biggest best deal?
Well, for me, it's probably more like a team, like you're saying. And for me, I've been really impressed with what the Chargers have done.
Yeah.
I mean, they're definitely moving up on my radar as one to watch. You're re-signing Mike Williams. You bring in Sebastian Joseph Day. You get Khalil Mack. You add in JC Jackson. They're not small names, are they? They're all massive names. They've got Justin Herbert on a nice rookie contract who knows how to throw the ball around. That defense is super strong now. So yeah, just the deals that they've done and what they've managed to bring in for me has been a big eye opener. They look like they're almost like they want to stamp their authority a little bit in LA, like the Rams have done. Adam, I know you've always said that you didn't like the business that the Rams did, but you feel like now other teams are looking at that and maybe doing a sort of similar thing.
Yeah, I think like it's a well-known thing, isn't it? In the NFL, you see what someone does, it works, therefore you copy it. It's not an uncommon thing to happen. Yeah, I think that is something that you're going to see more and more of. I think, unfortunately, my team seem to be doing it a little bit now as well, and it's just something that seems to be how the NFL is going to work. I think since Brady moved to the Bucs, it's been a template and it's worked 2 years in a row. So it's difficult to argue against it. I think the thing with the Rams that was a little bit different for me was that they have literally just thrown away draft picks, whereas I feel like a lot of these moves, they're free agency moves. So you kind of expect it to happen. It's not a surprise. The reason the Chargers can do it is because they had a load of money to spend. So it's not so much of an issue for me this way, whereas for the Rams was a bit different. But yeah, I think you're going to start seeing this a bit more. The one thing I would say, I am a little surprised with some of the contracts, especially the wide receiver ones. I feel like in the last few years, we have seen quite a lot of guys come out the draft and been hits. They haven't been bad. They've been pretty good. And it feels like you can get yourself a wide receiver at a much cheaper rate through the draft that's going to hit. And it's almost becoming a bit like running backs in the draft, where these guys are doing really well. So why are you going out and spending all this money on wide receivers? Now, don't get me wrong, there's some wide receivers that you definitely pay for. But there have been a few that you sort of think to yourself, like the Christian Kirk one. I think that's the one that's got the most attention, purely because when you actually look at it, you sort of think, what record has this guy had in his last 3-4 years that makes you think he's worth 17, 18 million a year? And that's even before any bonuses. So, and I get that it's the Jags and that it's difficult to get people to play there because who wants to play for the Jags and all that sort of thing. But it just kind of feels a little bit strange. I think that's where it's been a bit odd. But the rest of this I actually think there's been a lot of good deals. I think a lot of them have been quite sensible and have, it's almost like it's been teams needing certain positions and they've gone and got them. And I don't know if that might be because of all the problems with COVID and the money being a little bit less, and it's almost like made them be a little bit more sensible about things. But I do feel like some of the wide receivers just don't need to be paid as much as what they are.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you mentioned. Oh, sorry, Andrew. Just on the back of that, Adam, it's interesting that you mentioned Kirk, because I actually liked what the Jags have done as a whole, from bringing in Doug Peterson to, you mentioned Christian Kirk, and I do agree they've definitely overpaid without a doubt. But I think to your point, the cap has gone up. So I guess, and there's obviously new TV deals. Amazon are a player in the game now. I don't know why they spent so much money on him. And then you've got guys like Devontae Adams who are earning less, which is obviously why he's decided to not play on the franchise tag. But I do think, bringing in Christian Kirk, he's a deep threat. I like him. I actually do like Zay Jones from the Raiders as well, who they've brought in too. Evan Engram, I know we haven't seen a lot from him, but when you have players in bad positions, like he was at the Giants, I think you can kind of forget what their talent actually is or what they can actually do. So bringing him in, who was a Colts target as well, is also a great deal. But they've also brought in offensive tackle Cam Robinson, Brandon Sheriff from the Commanders, another guard, Tyler Shatley. They've brought in a few pieces that I just feel like will steady the ship. Will at least get them, 5 wins potentially. I don't know, something around that. I like how they've decided to try and revamp themselves. I like the look of it. Let's not forget Travis Etienne as well, who didn't even play last season.
Yeah. Now, I think we've all kind of noted this. Adam just said it then. We don't really feel like there's been any bad moves so far in free agency. Everybody who's been picked up, we're kind of like giving it a bit of a tick and saying, yeah, that looks all right. But is there any players that have gone or been let go or during this period that you've gone, I'm really not sure about that. What are they doing? What's going on?
Yeah, I got one. I don't understand. I understood what the Chicago Bears were doing, and now I don't understand what the Chicago Bears are doing. So I understood when they got rid of Khalil Mack because he's a bit older and his production is sort of waning a little bit. I get it. And the argument was we're going to go have a bit of a younger team, be a little bit, go through the draft and all that sort of thing. And then they went out and signed Larry Ogunjobi on a 3-year, £40 million deal. And I was a little bit like, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me because don't get me wrong, I think he's a great player and was really good for the Bengals last year and has been good for a long time. But when you want to get younger, it's a 3-year deal. And I just don't quite get the, if you're going to bring people in and you've got Justin Fields, who's younger, do they think that, you only bring this guy in if you think you're going to win? I mean, do they think they're going to win? In which case, if they thought they were going to win, why did they get rid of Khalil Mack? It's a weird signing. So nothing against the player, but I do find that one a slightly odd one. Not sure about that at all.
I think I forget his name. The new Bears GM, who was actually an ex-Bears player. I forget his name escapes me, but he's come in and he's basically, I think he's tried to flip this on its head. In the same way that the Raiders used Khalil Mack as trade collateral to send them to the Bears, the Bears, I think, are kind of doing the same thing. But it's odd because you bring in a guy like Ogunjobi and it's like 3 years, $40 million. It's a lot of money. You have other areas you need to prioritize, especially with someone like Justin Fields. Like, it doesn't really make much sense. So I'm completely with you on that one. But for me, it's a bit of a random one. I think it was announced today or probably yesterday. The Bills signing J.D. McKissick from the Commanders. I don't really understand it. It's quite a random one. He's someone I like to call like a scat back, right? He's small, shifty. He can create space in small pockets, and we've seen what he can do in bursts last year. But they obviously have, I forget even that Singletary, who only came on strong towards the end of last season. Other than that, he wasn't effective at all. And again, there was talk over and over again about why is Josh Allen their number one running back? You cannot be putting his body on the line. He is your future. You need to kind of, draw back the QB runs a little bit, stop the contact. And that's where you have your bigger bodied running back, i.e. Melvin Gordon, to do that work for you. So you have him. You have Moss as well, who I don't think they're so high on, who hasn't really done too much. He could have been that guy. He could have been that change of, slightly bigger bodied, 1 or 2 yard conversion guy. Hasn't really worked out. So bringing in J.D. McKissick from the Washington Commanders, I'm not too sure I don't really get what that's about. I mean, if they do go ahead and move forward with Singletary, I do think it's a bit of a mistake because Josh Allen's going to find himself hurt pretty soon and they're going to regret that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a friend who's quite a big Bills fan, and I know when I was talking about their running back positions, there's 2 names that always spring to mind with me. It's Melvin Gordon and it's Marlon Mack. I still can't believe how Marlon Mack is not with another team. I think he's a real talented back. As a Giants fan, I'd love to bring him in to back up Saquon for when he gets hurt. So we've got a start of day one. So yeah, real confusing what they're doing at running back at the Bills. They've not managed to get that right over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, really. It's a bit of a shocker. There was some other news that I thought was a bit shocking, and it came out today. It was the release of Miles Jack at Jacksonville. It's a position that I felt at linebacker that they needed some extra power at. So I know they brought in someone in free agency, but yeah, I thought that was a bit of an odd one.
Yeah, Miles Jack has been he's been a really good player, hasn't he, for them for a long time now. And I don't know exactly how much he was going to cost them, but you kind of feel like it's not really. I mean, like, they've still got 13 million space, so you do sort of think to yourself, could you not have done something there? It feels like a strange one. Maybe they're looking at refreshing it, getting someone new in that position, but it did feel a little bit strange to me, I must admit.
It is weird, especially because I think I've mentioned, you look at who they've been bringing in over the last few days. They've been very active, one of the more active teams, actually. And I think that's with obvious reason. When you're a team as bad as they were, you have to do something, which is why I can't understand why the Colts just aren't doing anything. Not that they're a bad team, but right now they look like trash. We look like trash. We just look awful. I won't go into that again, but yeah, I mean, he's a great guy. He'll get picked up without a doubt. I don't know where he ends up. It won't be the Colts because we've re-signed a couple of our guys now. It's a strange one. It is a strange one, but sometimes, and again, these guys have more insight than we do. And obviously they have plans elsewhere for these players, and maybe they bring somebody else in. But Miles Jack is a weird one because he's someone who makes a difference in your defense. Put it that way. He may not be, he may not be the guy who flies from sideline to sideline every single play, but he's definitely a baller without doubt.
Did Miles Jack play inside linebacker?
I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. I don't know.
He
was a linebacker.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure where
he's linebacker.
Yeah,
they have brought in someone called Foy Alukan from the Atlanta Falcons, who's a linebacker. So maybe that's the theory. Just bring someone else in who
both the same age as well, aren't they? Both 26.
Yeah.
So there's not even an age problem there. This brings me to another topic when I'm looking at it. I did say before that there's been a lot of day one has been very heavy for offensive line. The Giants have made 2 veteran moves and bringing in Glowinski and John Feliciano. So that's going to strengthen up that. We've seen, like I said, the Jags have made 3 moves on offensive line. There are lots of teams that are at the top of that draft market, early draft picks. Do you think this is going to elevate all those big defender names in the draft and see those 2, Evan Neal and Icky, drop in the draft slightly, and maybe teams aren't going to go after a rookie?
I'll let you go, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, it is a weird one, isn't it? Because obviously there was a lot of O-line guys that were touted as being towards the top of the draft, and also it kind of feels like O-line and edge rusher is quite heavy in this draft as well. Like there's a quite far back. It's like
there's 6 guys that are real top class. So
but also you're going to get guys in like the 2nd, 3rd round that are also decent at that position. So it does kind of feel almost a little bit odd that people have gone that way in free agency to go for the O-line guys. But yeah, the fact that they have, I mean, it would make you think that the defensive guys will probably, especially the D-line guys, will come up a bit more. Maybe you might find a couple of the corners might come up a bit more in the draft as well. I think just, that they're the sort of positions, aren't they, that people go for in the draft a little bit more often. So yeah, it might make a difference. It is a bit surprising, but I suppose there's a lot of O-linemen already in the league that people like, and it's not like they're massive money, are they? I mean, it's like I can't remember how much Feliciano cost you, but obviously like Glowinski is a 3-year, $20 million contract. It doesn't feel that massive. So
I think just off the back of what you're saying, Adam, there was I forgot who it was. I think it might have been a GM or a head coach in the league who basically said, if we can go out and get someone who's proven, who's a vet, who's shown us he can do it, why on earth are we going to risk, picking someone up in the draft and potentially have them be trash or be bust when we know we can just pick up this guy here? So you say Glowinski, there you go as an example. I know he's leaving the Colts to go to the Giants, but I think you mentioned it earlier with quarterbacks. The whole Brady and Stafford has created a big, and I've had this conversation with a few different people, whether teams are willing to go after the vets or go all in for the vets who are more experienced. And I think it's kind of trickled down slightly to the offensive guys that you're talking about, or the bigger guys on the line, where teams know they have a need and they're more than willing to go after that if they can go after someone who's proven and done it before, as opposed to taking that chance on someone from the draft. But on the flip side, you mentioned it, the draft is full of a lot of good edge rushers. Aiden Hutchinson, obviously his name's on everyone's tongue. But also Sauce Gardner, who's a cornerback as well. Andrew, you mentioned whether corners, and there's a lot of talk about corners too. So I think it's a bit of both. Yeah, edge rushers, defensive guys, corners are definitely going to see themselves rise. Like there's a safety, Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame, which is a college team that I follow. He's one of the freakish athletes that I've seen for his position. He's lengthy, he's quick, he can blitz.
Probably
he
the best
tackles
player
well.
in the draft.
It's unreal. It's unreal.
Player, yeah.
So I think it's going to be an exciting one. And I feel like I say this every season, but I feel like next season is going to be the best season ever. I just say it every time because you look at all the moves that are happening, and it technically free agency opens tomorrow, right? Wednesday 16th. And you've seen all the moves that have happened so far. And then you look at the guys that are in the draft. I've almost forgotten about the guys that are in the draft because of all the madness that's happening with the trades and the free agency and everything else. Tom Brady has obviously made a return. I know we don't really want to talk about him, but come September, I think there's going to be a lot of fireworks. And I'll just say this: the AFC West is the most loaded division in the entire NFL. Fact.
Yeah, easily. It's the elite one, isn't it? Talking about something else that's going to affect the draft. I mean, he's not here to defend himself, but I feel like it's a topic that probably is good to discuss. Mitch Trubisky to the Steelers. Freddie will put his point of view in. He still feels like the Steelers will draft Willis. What's your guys' take on this? How do you feel like this was a good move? Let's throw this at you first, George.
So I listen to so many different NFL podcasts, so I hear so many different takes, and a lot of them are quite similar. And the one thing I kept and consistently hear about Trubisky is he's going to get some decent money and he's going to be a starter somewhere. And I know they're not always right. They're never right. They can't always be right. They're only human. But the fact that Mitch obviously backed up Josh Allen in Buffalo, that I don't know why he didn't really play that much, but that has a lot of credibility to it. And the fact that he worked with Brian Daboll, who's obviously now with the Giants as head coach, there was just so much buzz around the league that it's weird. You can almost talk someone into more money just by mentioning his name over and over again. Honestly, it feels that way with Mitch. We've seen what he can do when he was with the Bears. Credit, he wasn't in the best situation. He did play that one game against the Bears, funnily enough, when he was with the Bills, and he actually did all right. I don't remember if they won the game or not. I think they did. However, as for the Steelers, obviously they've gone out and got him. Do I see him as their full-time replacement? I don't. I really don't. I know there's all the hype about Mitch, and he can do certain things, but I just can't see him being their starter for the next however many years. I can't. I forget the name of the guy they've already got.
Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph.
Dwayne Haskins.
He's played. No, well, yeah, both of them. Dwayne Haskins, obviously. I don't. There was a quote from Mike Tomlinson saying that Dwayne Haskins is the truth. That's a lie. Stop lying. We know you're lying. They do it all the time. That's not the truth. Mitch, I don't know. I don't think the Steelers will end up going for a guy like Willis. I just can't see it happening. I feel like if anyone, that's probably the Seahawks who might go down that route. But as far as is Mitch going to be the starting quarterback for the Steelers moving forward, I don't think so. But then on the flip side, why would you trade for him in the first place if that's not the plan? I mean, you have 3 guys on the roster now. I don't really know what the plan is, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's look, as a Green Bay fan, I want him to succeed just because it annoy the Bears fans, won't it? So,
yeah.
But I think the reason is that there's been all this hype around him is that the quarterbacks coming out in the draft this year are kind of considered not to be that great. Now, I get the feeling that might be more because the quarterbacks that we've had in the last couple of years have been amazing rather than the fact that they're actually not awful. So I think because of that, you've got someone who has already played, so he's kind of got a bit of history. There's this sort of narrative behind Mitchell Trubisky that Matt Nagy never used him the right way. That the way that he played in, at college was, he was much better under the head coach at college than what he ever was with Nagy. So I think there is that kind of feeling behind it. I also think it was probably a bit of a PR exercise from his agent trying to boost the market a little bit.
And it worked. I mean, he got paid. Is it a guaranteed contract or is it an incentive? It's got to be incentive based, right?
I'm not sure what it is, but it's 2 years and it's $7 million a year. So yes, he got paid, but he didn't get paid, real starting quarterback money. And when it comes for the Steelers, I think it's a no-brainer. I really do. I mean, you might as well bring him in because you haven't got anything else there at the moment. Mason Rudolph, no matter what they say, is clearly not capable. Dwayne Haskins, to be honest, he's played a little bit at Washington. It was a bit of a nightmare for him. So you don't really know what you've got with Haskins because he hasn't really played. Only like the Ohio State crazy fans, the guy to my left would know about him. So I mean, you don't really know what you got with him, but the problem with him seems to be the problem.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So that's an issue. I don't think they go for Willis. I've been saying for a couple of weeks now, since Russell Wilson's gone, it makes sense to me that he goes to Seattle. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but it really does. It feels a little bit like a budget version of Russell Wilson. So, it wouldn't be the craziest place for Willis to end up. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer for the Steelers. They've got him for 2 years. Have a shot. He might be good, and if he is, then great, because that's going to annoy all the Bears fans.
Definitely a bridge quarterback, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I don't want to interrupt, but this isn't really breaking news because it's I don't really even know who the guy is, but Colts have agreed a 1-year deal with former Raiders cornerback Brandon Faison. And I'll tell you this: the first comment says, "Who is that?" That's what. And I've never seen him before. Don't really know who he is. But let's hope that Ballard and Frank Reich have spotted the next J.C. Jackson or something and have brought him in on a 1-year deal was a prove it deal, so can't be that great. Anyway, thought I'd stick that in there. Still doesn't do anything for the Colts. I'm still sitting here sulking. I'm still upset. I'm still angry. I'm still depressed, and I don't know what we're doing with our lives. So.
Can I just say it was worth bringing you on board just purely for these last couple of days. It's been great fun.
Honestly, just for my last word of the Colts, I'm just genuinely shocked at what Ballard is doing. I'm speaking to a couple of people over at the Colts in Indianapolis at the minute who are like diehard fans, and the word is that players and the fans are starting to lose their hope with Ballard. I mean, he was one of the most respected guys in the league. Still probably is. And like you say, there might be something, something up his sleeve in terms of Derek Carr. The Raiders have been quiet too, aside from Zay Jones. Maybe there's something about, them. And like you said, the Colts and the Raiders trying to do a deal. But as far as it stands, I'm just absolutely mortified at what is going on. There's having the most cap space and being conservative with money and pleasing Jim Irsay and being the finance man. But there's the other side where you don't even make the playoffs with 7 Pro Bowlers on your roster. That's embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing to the Jags who had Urban Meyer and didn't even have a head coach towards him. Like, what is? No.
My dad's a big Colts fan, and I haven't heard from him for like a week and a half, and he usually rings me all the time to tell me what's going. He either rings me to tell me that he doesn't like what the Colts have done, and I try and convince him that it's a good idea, or I've heard nothing from him. So I need to find out what's going on with him as well. But it's another quick topic. I don't know if anybody's seen the videos. I brought up in the group. Adam laughed at me. Colin Kaepernick's been working out with Tyler Lockett.
Why? I'm not. Oh, I'm glad you mentioned Tyler Lockett's name. Colin Kaepernick won't be back in the league. I know people. It's not going to happen. No one's going to sign him. Let's just put that out there. Good that he's staying in shape, though. However, the Tyler Lockett one is interesting because there was talk about Tyler Lockett being one of the puzzle pieces being shipped out of, and we're talking full rebuild for the Seahawks. Because obviously, I know you got DK there. You don't really have much of a run game. You've got Rashard Penny. I don't know who backs him up, but there was talk about Lockett leaving as well. And he's a great receiver. He is really, really good, and he would do well with the Colts. To be fair, But again, he's going to be too expensive for Ballard to put his hands into his pocket. So let's forget that. I don't know why. I do think it's common that past and present NFL players, they do work out together. So you do see that, and a lot of these channels will normally put it out there to try and insinuate one thing or another, when really, obviously, Kaepernick won't be signed. But Lockett may be moving on. I don't know. That one is a bit interesting.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna mention about the Colin Kaepernick thing. It's just you want to wind up like normal, so you know.
And another one for you, Adam. Obviously, we saw Devontae Adams say he won't play under the franchise tag. We've seen him reject the first offer that they've given him. You haven't got any money to play with. Mm-hmm. What do you think is going to happen with this deal?
Well, first of all, I beg to differ when you say we haven't got any money to play with. We're only minus 6 million now. Sorry, not 1,000. That would have been nice, wouldn't it? 6 million.
Is that after the Rodgers?
That is after
deal?
The Rodgers deal. Yeah.
All right. So you're still all right. Okay.
So I would expect Jair Alexander to get another contract, which will push the money further down the line. I think there will be a few others. I think Randall Cobb, they're talking about, they're not going to bring him back on the 9 million contract, but they're going to bring him back on a much smaller one. So that will bring the money down. I think actually they've been quite clever with what they've done with the money. They've done quite well. I think once the decision was made that they were going to go in with Rodgers and that Rodgers was going to go in with them, I think you have to kind of go all in to a certain extent, that you can't not do it, because otherwise it's just going to be a disaster. So yeah, I think they'll get it done. They've got until I think is it the 15th of July? I read that they've got until then that they have to sign him before. But to be honest, this is his first franchise tag. So if he doesn't want to play, he's just going to get franchise tagged again, isn't he? So you know, I mean,
hold out.
Yeah.
There's talk of him holding out.
The one thing I would say.
Sorry, Adam. Go on.
The one thing I'd quickly say, I think the Packers have learned from last year and everything that went on with Rodgers. If he holds out, I understand he deserves to be paid, and he does. But if he holds out, he's going to look like the bad guy in this situation, I think. Whereas for last year, Rodgers played them like a bit of a fiddle. And it really wasn't, you know, Rodgers was the good guy and the organization was the bad guy. This is different. And I think if he holds out, it's not going to look good for him.
Do you know what? I think the other way around, actually. I think that if he does hold out, I think he probably should, because he leads the league, I think, in the last 2 or 3 years in most catches. I mean, you're the Green Bay fan, but
are you saying I'm biased? What are you trying to say?
No. I just think a guy like Devontae Adams, who we know what he is. We don't need to even discuss what he is. We know what he is. He's top 3 wide receiver in the league, and that's a fact. Obviously, they were going to pay Aaron Rodgers. We know that, and there was going to be no debate over that. But this is when the other issues start to crop up. You have to let guys go, and you're still over the cap, right? I think, what are you, 6 million or something?
Yeah.
Devontae Adams is making less money than Christian Kirk. Just let that sink in. That is not correct. The only person I think making more money than him is Hopkins, and I think maybe Julio Jones, or he might be underneath Devontae. I'm not entirely sure. And Jones is done. He's washed. He's his career is finished. It's not going to happen anymore for him. And you have one shot at this. I think he's 29. If I'm not correct, I think he's 29. Yeah. As a wide receiver, he needs to hold out because he needs that money. And I would, if I was him, I'm not him obviously, but I would definitely hold out. And what that does for the Packers, it's bad for you guys. If he pulls out, it's really bad for you guys because it almost, at that point, you've lost MVS. Alan Lazard he's been tendered, so people can match his offer if they want to. I don't really know. No one. Equinemius St. Brown is trash. So yeah, I mean, I even feel like I don't think this will happen, but obviously you've got AJ Dillon, who he's got the big legs and he's all right and all that, and you pair him with You pair him with, how can I forget his name? Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
And they make a great combo, although the split was a bit more 50-50 this year than people were thinking. Yeah, if he holds out, it's bad news for you guys. Really bad news.
Yeah. I disagree with what he's doing, just on the case of the fact that although if he wants to call himself the number one wide receiver, or if we want to call him the number one wide receiver, he's definitely in the conversation. He's got to understand what's going on at Green Bay and understand that the money isn't there. And what's more important, we all know that the NFC is the weaker side of it. Is getting a ring on your finger more important than 23 million or plus or whatever you want? At the end of the day, he's got to go. We still need to Tonyan's a free agent as well, isn't he? He's out of contract as well. I think you've got to kind of go, do you know what? I'm happy playing with Aaron Rodgers. You've got the quarterback that throws me the ball all the time. Let's win a Super Bowl. Let's prove everybody wrong that we don't blow it every year. And I'll take the less money, and I'll just on Twitter tell everyone I'm the best receiver. He's got to understand the situation. The money's not there. Don't ask for it. It seems crazy.
Do you think he should take a leaf out of the Bucks setup, because a lot of those guys take discounts to play with Brady, and they're doing it again this year? So yeah, who knows?
The Colts are well known for doing it. In the era where Manning was there, and you had Harrison and Wayne and all those guys, they took cuts every single year. All of the big names did. And they kept that team for ages, and it did do it and was competitive every single year. So, they need. He does. I think there's an air of like, what's more important, money or a Super Bowl ring? And if I was playing American football at a great team and I was as good as him, a ring would be the ultimate goal, surely.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that at the end of the day, it's going to reach a point where, do you want to play and earn yourself 20 million, or are you going to give that up? And the one thing that you've got to remember with Adams, and George is right when he says that it is ridiculous that someone like Christian Kirk is getting paid similar or more money. But the fact is that he needs to just realize that the money isn't there, but he hasn't. When you actually look at these wide receivers, he hasn't actually earned a large amount of money over his career. Like I think if you look at it, he's earned about 60 million, which when you think you're talking about top end wide receivers, some of these contracts that like DeAndre Hopkins has had and Julio Jones has had over the years, he hasn't matched it at all. So he has kind of been not getting the money through. And you just sort of feel like you're talking about 1 year and you're going to get paid 20 million. I mean, it's not that bad.
It's not.
But I do understand that players don't like it.
The main concern is, at the age that he's at, he's one injury away from never reaching that big contract and securing his family and et cetera, which is the nature of the game. Look at Ryan Shazier, who was a massively promising linebacker and then nearly paralyzed himself completely. It can happen. So again, it's not great. And Andrew, you make some really good points about playing with Aaron Rodgers and going after that ring, but I feel like this is just a different scenario where he is too good to sacrifice potentially any kind of injury, and then that will then stop him from getting what it is he wants to get. So it's hurtful to the team, and it may come across selfish, but I think it's the right decision for him.
Okay, on the last note of the show, we've had day one of technically day one of free agency. Let's quickly go around the table and say we've seen some of the moves. Who's your one to watch for next year, early doors? Adam, do you want to go first?
I think it's very difficult to get away from the Chargers.
Okay.
I think it is. I think they are just they need to make the statement that they're going to lose LA if they don't, and they need to make the statement. They need to make a big thing. They already had the offense. Now that they've signed Mike Williams again, they've kept that offense as it is. And now they've gone and got themselves some serious players on the defense. The one thing, every single preview show that we ever did, Andrew, we were always saying, put your money on the running back who was up against the Chargers. And Khalil Mack is going to help that. And they've made some other ones as well. I can't remember who they are, but they've made some other good signings. And you just sort of think that's going to help that. And that's why I think they're going to be one to watch, but it's a ridiculous division. It really is.
I mean, I know it's a bit of a cheat code with me going with the Broncos, but again, similar to Adam, it's almost impossible to ignore what they've done. I mean, I just can't. In that division, it's just absolutely mental. You have Derek Carr currently and the Raiders, who kind of obviously sit at the bottom of that QB depth chart in terms of the other competitors in that league. You have Russell Wilson and everything that they have on offense and now defense, especially with Randy on that side of the ball and the up-and-coming guys like Patrick Surtain II that I mentioned earlier. And then you have Kansas, who are Kansas. Obviously, they've made some moves as well, but they will always be Kansas City and they will always be involved in the conversation so long as they have guys like Kelsey, Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. I know they get found out a bit, but they can still get it done. And then, Jesus, the Chargers, it's just unreal. I can't wait to watch those games, man. I really can't.
Well, for me, I felt like, obviously, Chargers, the moves they made on today were brilliant, but I felt like Bengals were the biggest winners on strengthening that O-line. We saw what Joe Burrow could do when he was getting slammed 24/7, and they've already strengthened that O-line up massively. I think the Bengals are not a one-hit wonder. I think they're still one to watch. And yeah, I don't think we've seen the end of what they're going to be doing in free agency as well. So although they've just been to the Super Bowl, I don't think it was luck. And the moves they've made, I think they won the best of the moves so far in free agency. So I'm going to keep them on my radar to see what else they do. Nice. But that's it, guys. We all picked 3 teams. I did like what the Chargers did. The Chargers were a bit of a favourite of what they did, but Adam's already stole that one. Thanks for joining me, guys. It's great to be back talking about American football. There's so much more to come. The draft is only around the corner. As I said, George from George on Sports, you can catch him if you want to talk to him about other sports as well. If you follow him on social media or Instagram or anything like that, he'll be talking a little bit about Arsenal, I'm sure. I think there's some kickboxing. I saw some Formula One in there. He's great to go and follow him. Go and follow him. He's new to the team. He's brilliant. Also, while you're at it, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, like and subscribe on our YouTube. Adam's doing some absolutely fantastic stuff on Twitter. Go and check it out. There's plenty of polls and things to talk about. He's trying to get to that 10,000 followers, so I buy him a case of red wine. So if anybody wants to assist in that, go and help it. But till next week, guys, thanks for joining and good night.